Welcome back to another episode of Footy with the Boys. Nick, you may
Oh,
notice that Nick is not with us today.
wait, what
He
the
had
fuck?
his tires slashed, so he will not join us. It'll be a two-man today. Mike, how are you feeling? I see you got a saucy jersey on there.
yeah, a little Argentina had to represent for Messi. I think it was a Tottenham fan who ended up slashing Nick's tire. That's what I'm hearing on the streets.
Yeah,
Not
I
too
heard
happy.
the title contender talk really got him going. No tires
Definitely.
means no Nick. So you're stuck with me and Mike today. And Mike, I wanna start with what's on our screen right now. Ballon d'Or, Messi wins his eighth title over Erling
Yeah.
Haaland. Erling Haaland won the treble, broke the Premier League scoring record, was scoring goals for fun. Messi also scoring a lot of goals, not as crazy, but won the World Cup. Did Messi deserve it, Mike? First thought of the day.
Yeah. Yep. I think he did. Um, I think it's so close. I think if Haaland won it, I'd say he deserved it. Messi ended up winning it. I think he deserves it. Controversy. I mean, for sure, people are talking about how Haaland's been robbed, but people say that every single year during the Ballon d'Or. And you know what? Journalists decide the award. How much it really means is kind of up for debate. I think it used to be a more prestigious award than it is now. Now it seems to be kind of just a popularity contest, a little bit of a show. But I think he deserves it. And I think it's because of the World Cup. If it's any other year, if it's just a European season, Holland wins it. He did everything he could, but he wasn't even in the World Cup. And that was the premier competition of the entire season. Messi obviously played a huge role in Argentina's success. Finishes a runner-up for the Golden Boot, won the Golden Ball at the tournament, and had a decent season at PSG as well. Um, Not as much success, didn't win the Champions League, obviously, like Haaland did, or get the goal record in the Premier League like Haaland did. But I think that Messi still does more as a footballer than Haaland does. And that's the one thing I'd take away from Haaland is phenomenal goal scorer, but that's that's it. That's his real um, that's his real thing that sets him apart from other players. He scores goals at an unreal rate, but he doesn't do the other things.
That was gonna be
What do
my
you think,
question
Flags?
too, because I obviously don't know anything about any of this, but I I figured that, the World Cup win for Messi was probably just kind of the icing on the cake there, right? Because I mean, that's like a historic moment. Is the guy
It is.
that everyone is kind of arguing back and forth with Ronaldo throughout my whole childhood as the GOAT, and he finally gets that World Cup win. That's like that's history as far as I'm concerned, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the argument of the romanticizing of the GOAT and his coronation in the World Cup, you can't not conclude that with a Ballon d'Or, especially he scored in every knockout game, was legitimately their team. Like it was get the ball to Messi, he'll create, get it back to Messi, he'll create, he's running, scoring, everything was run through Messi as a proper team with Messi should do that PSG didn't do. But Messi wins this, and I think Holland could and probably should feel that he should have won. And I think any other year he wins it. Obviously,
He does.
he set records of goals. He won the treble, almost like never done. People do that. Yet at the same time, if you were to ask Erling Haaland, would you rather have won the treble and scored all these goals, broken those records, or would you have led your team through every single game in the World Cup and won a World Cup? I think he chooses the World Cup. I don't think he's saying, "Oh, I want the FA Cup, Premier League, and Champions League." I think he's saying, "I want the World Cup," and I think that's the importance of it. is that Messi ended up winning that competition, and he still had uh, a body of work in Ligue
In
1
his
with a
European
lot of
championships.
goals, even when it's not something that he won a lot with PSG with. He still had a lot of individual contributions, and I do think that Holland could have cemented this if he had scored in the Champions League final, if he had scored in the FA final, if he scored in all these big games. I think you see it's you can't turn him down for this, but I think because he didn't have a huge iconic moment like Messi had throughout that entire tournament, it's easier to turn and say, okay, Messi, now's your time. You did what you've been trying for your entire career. Like, let's celebrate it.
Messi
So I think
also
both of them
did
deserve.
really well in the MLS, which is the most prestigious league in the world. So I mean,
Of course,
Of
yeah.
course. Yes, of course.
I mean, the
How can
Premier
we forget
League,
that?
yeah, that's good, but the League's Cup, I mean, fuck, man.
Holland didn't win
Who
that.
who who can say they've won that?
yeah,
Just Messi.
Messi and
So
Zlatan. Did Zlatan even win?
no,
I
Zlatan
don't think so.
leagues the
See,
League's Cup started this year, so it's a tournament within
only
MLS.
only goats have
The
won it.
first time. So literally the only people that have won it is Messi's team. So
Holy shit!
good for him. Good for Messi. And 8, that is never going to get beaten. Like you said, it does
Never.
sound like a bit more of a popularity contest recently, but there's never going to be somebody on top of the game that much. And respect to Ronaldo for taking so many off of him by being
I
GOAT
mean, yeah,
beat.
he's got
Is
5, and I don't think anybody else is gonna touch 5.
No.
Like, I think both of those guys are in a world of their own.
Ronaldo's the closest
Um,
with 5?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next after that is 3. A few players have 3.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely deserved. I think the real interesting thing here is if Argentina loses that final and Mbappe and France win the World Cup, I
Mbappe
think we'd be
wins it.
talking about Mbappe winning the Ballon d'Or and be like, "Oh, should have Holland beat Mbappe?" Because a hat trick in the World Cup final, like, yeah, Golden Boot, he would have
Dude,
gotten the
I was
Golden Ball.
fucking
If
terrified of that
Mbappe
guy
wins,
in
if
that
Kolo
World Cup final.
Muani gets that goal,
Yeah,
it's wraps. It is Mbappe's world for the rest of the next however many years. It still will be, but if he scores a hat trick in the final, Kolo Muani gets that past Emi Martinez, France wins back-to-back World Cups, and Mbappe is the star, he is 100% Ballon d'Or winner because same with Messi, the World Cup is just different and he has the iconic moment. But
I agree.
enough Ballon d'Or. We get into the Premier League. And we start with a team that, oh, goddamn, they need to win. It is Manchester United, who were just bounced from the Carabao Cup by Newcastle 3-0. The fans were chanting, "You're going to be sacked in the morning." We'll see if that rings true tomorrow. But at the moment, that seat is burning hot, Mike. They're going to Fulham. They haven't looked good against anyone, really. Is this the game that Erik ten Hag is out?
Yeah, dude, and it is. I mean, he should be out already, but if they lose against Fulham, which I don't feel all that confident they beat Fulham. Like,
I
Fulham's
don't
not that
either.
strong of a team, but this seems like a tight one to me. They got annihilated by Newcastle today. Um, Squad rotation in both sides, but more squad rotation from Newcastle. Like, there were 1 or 2 starting players in that Newcastle 11. Anthony Gordon and maybe Sean Longstaff. But, like, look at all those guys. None of those dudes are week in, week out starters. Maybe Jollington would slip into the midfield, but, like, that's their B team. And they get 3-0. Holy shit. And that's coming off another 3-0 on the weekend, obviously, against Man City. It's
Consistency.
it's yeah, consistently shit. I wonder who they start this weekend, man. I hopefully the lineup's better, but like I don't know how much better it could possibly be.
Yeah,
and they're not going to change the style of game. I mean, I listened to a few guys talk this past weekend. Gary Neville, Jimmy Carragher. Man U doesn't have an identifiable style of football, style of play. Like they can't pass out of the back. Look at the back line and their goalkeeper. And they brought in Onana for distribution because De Gea wasn't cutting it, and it hasn't got any better. They're just playing long balls. They have no sort of possession. Fulham will sit deeper because they don't possess the ball that well, but I don't trust Manchester United to be able to pick them apart unless Marcus Rashford decides to step up this game. I'm thinking it's kind of a draw. That's what I predict. What do you think, Flex?
yeah, I quite honestly think that like Fulham is not a attacking threat type of team, but Manchester United have been just leaking goals. So Fulham, I honestly think this could be a draw, but there is a part of me that says, you know what, Manchester United never been convincing, but look at what they are on the table. They still are getting some results. You'd hope they can pull this out. This is for Eric Ten Hag's job. If he does not get 3 points here, if he gets a draw or a loss, he has got to be out. They are playing pitiful. Even if they're eighth in the table right now, 2 points behind seventh, they're also 3 points out of 14th.
Right.
They're not playing good. They're not convincing in any type of way. There has not been a single game that has been convincing that Manchester United are Manchester United. I think this is going to be a tough one. I think Fulham ends up getting a draw here. I think Eric Ten Hag is out. And I think that's very much so for the betterment of Manchester United. I hope somebody can come in and at least make them competitive. I think they're going to have to spend in the January window to get some people in because I think they're sorely lacking depth. We get to the other team that's a little bit similar to them, but has shown a little bit of convincing form. It is Chelsea. They do not get an easy matchup as they are going up against league leaders Tottenham Hotspur. Mike, there's been a lot from our slash tire co-host about them not being a title favorite. And this is not saying that maybe Chelsea is who they used to be, but this still seems like a bit of a test for Tottenham. If they win this game, how much more does that solidify them as a real contender in the season?
I'll be the Nick voice real quick. Tottenham's spot on the table means nothing. So, this is a game more about like maybe a fifth seed versus Chelsea.
That's haunting, dude. I thought Nick was in the room for a second. Whew, that's
Nick has made
impressive.
it back, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
I have him on FaceTime.
yeah, I mean, Chelsea's not great, but this is a tough game. It's a rivalry matchup, and even though Chelsea's been wildly inconsistent, they're still a tough team. Um, I would have liked this game to be closer before I saw what happened last weekend with that Brentford loss. That was bad. Uh, but this is still a true test for Tottenham, um, and it won't be easy. I think they'll get it done. And yeah, this definitely helps cement their resume as a legit contender because all these games are hard. Aside from those three bottom teams and a handful of the mid-table guys, they're hard games to play. Especially Chelsea coming off a defeat, they're going to want to bounce back. They won today in the Carabao Cup, so a tad bit of midweek momentum. Um, yeah, I think it's a tough one. I think it's tougher than people would maybe give it credit for.
Yeah, I think Chelsea, although has lacked a lot of form, still a tough team to play. And this week, in terms of max match fixtures, is a week of tests for teams. I think Manchester United, we talked about, they're really close to failing their test. They need to pass. Tottenham here, this is a big test. I think Chelsea took Arsenal to the death and almost got the win. They really kind of threw it away. Arsenal was tested, and Arsenal's considered one of those top teams because they've done it consistently. I think this would be a good chance for Tottenham to show that they are at that level. But speaking about Arsenal, they like I said, are also in a test this week. Is a test versus Newcastle on both sides. I think this will say a lot. If Newcastle can get a win here or get a result, I think that really solidifies them in that 5-6 role, fighting with Aston Villa for, Europa League. But for Arsenal, it's a tough game against a top six in the table currently team, and they're in a pretty tight challenge for the title here. Like, do you worry about Arsenal dropping any points here and what that might mean? I know they've dropped points against Chelsea. They've had some earlier games against lower teams that they sneak out 1-0 wins, littler wins. Is this a game where Arsenal stamps their dominance, or is it a game where they might let it slip?
Yeah, to win the league, you need to win this game. With how tight it is right now, give themselves a little bit of a gap, especially with Man City and Liverpool playing easier competition. Um, this is a big one, and it's real tight. Newcastle is looking more consistent than they did at the beginning of the season. They were dropping games, losing games you think they would win. Arsenal hasn't showed any really fault. They play Sheffield last week. They win in dominant fashion, but that doesn't say much because of how bad Sheffield is.
Not
They
as
should be
dominant as
pretty
Newcastle.
fresh. They should be pretty fresh. Big squad rotation today with that ass beating they took against West Ham. So most of the starters should be ready to go. Yeah, I think this is the matchup of the week.
Speaking of slash tires, ooh,
Ooh, matchup of the week easily.
Don't kick a man
I
while
think.
he's down.
I think it's tight. I think it's tight. I think Nick would say that Arsenal's gonna win, and I think he'd be confident about it. But going to play at St. James is fucking tough, dude. And Newcastle can score a lot of freaking goals. Um, I'm excited to watch this one.
Yeah, I think similarly. I think I would be with Nick in saying that I do think Arsenal probably has the edge here, but I don't know if there's been a team that I could go into games like this year and say they have absolutely convinced me that they are the best team and they are going to come out against other good teams. This year's been a very even race at the top, and I think this is a really tough game, and Arsenal's going to be tested here. Newcastle's going to be tested to see if they can fight with the big boys. They've been rather inconsistent, so I think this is a big chance for them as well. And Newcastle coming off a big win versus, albeit a less informed Manchester United, but Arsenal's coming off a 3-1 loss to West Ham. Yes, they're rotated. Both teams are rotated, but that has something to do with the psyche. I think that might play in here, and I think Newcastle has a chance. This would be a good shot for them to take at the kind of front runners of the league to let people know where they're at. And like you said, Arsenal cannot drop points because our other two games in the Big Six are Manchester City versus Bournemouth and Luton versus Liverpool, both against some pretty lowly teams and some two title contenders. Mike, out of those two games, who do you think has the higher chance of pulling off an upset?
I'd say Bournemouth, just because they're a little bit better than Luton is. And I mean, we saw the crazy upset with Wolves versus City, but it's like,
Wolves
the
improving
stats
themselves
don't lie,
now.
dude. There's a chance.
yeah, it's by a hair, dude. I think these are like the easiest locks of the season so far. These two games in Liverpool and Manchester City's favor. Like
Glad you clarified that one.
something's gone really, really wrong if Bournemouth even has a fucking sniff of a chance in this game. I expect a lot of freaking goals from Man City, and I expect like 70% possession. So the only chance Bournemouth has is like a crazy counterattack, and City's really off the mark near the box. But no way, dude. These are easy locks.
Yeah, I don't think Bournemouth is very stout defensively. I don't think they can sit back and play like an old Burnley type ball where They just sit back and get a 0-0 draw. I think they're gonna leak goals in. I think Luton has the higher chance against Liverpool, just because I think Liverpool does play pretty fast and loose rock and roll football, as Jurgen Klopp loves. So it does leave some option where potentially Luton could make something happen. But like you said, I just don't think Luton has the talent. So yeah, these are some locks. Make sure to remember this for an Instagram clip when both teams lose at the end of the weekend. But I just see no chance of anything crazy happening there.
That'd be a nasty
Hey, that would
clip,
make
bro.
for a eventful weekend of
That's
Premier League
fucking
football.
content right there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We say it with some 100% guarantees, just so there is some content if it fucks up. But now we go into a game where there is some upset potential. Everton versus Brighton. Everton pulled it off versus West Ham last week, and West Ham was at a point level with Brightonish. I think Brighton's kind of stepped away from them, and West Ham has kind of dropped down a bit. But do you think Everton has a decent shot at a good result here? I think a good result's a tie. Do you think they're in the in form for that?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the form of the season, of our season, definitely right now, with a crazy win at West Ham where most people would have definitely counted us out. I had some faith. It wasn't super justified. I don't know like why I had it, but I did. And I think it just comes down to being a fan. And then we win in the midweek against, lesser competition, but a win's a win in the Carabao. Um, yeah, and Brighton's coming off a pretty mediocre performance against a not super strong Fulham team. They got the draw. I don't think they're much better than us, Fulham. So I do like our odds. Is that Goodison? Yeah, I think we could scrape out a draw for sure.
And remember, there's a little bit of fucking yellow on Brighton's logo. And
Yeah,
that
So
means
yellow
they
precaution.
suck. Yeah. Yeah.
It
They
means they're
suck.
slowing down.
Right.
yeah, I think Everton started to find some form. They found players that can play in a more attractive way, and that attractive football is getting results, getting goals, and that's also just moving up the morale of Everton. And I think for a bit there, they were playing bad because they didn't really have that much hope. I think they have some hope to pull out results against better teams like this. Do I ultimately think life on the line they're gonna get a result here?
You can't.
Probably not, but
You
I'm
can't.
gonna keep out hope. They have proved me wrong, and I don't know. They're Everton. It's Sean Dyche. He pulls out results. It's what he's known for. I think it'd be an interesting one to watch here. Maybe Ansu Fati gets a start for Brighton. I think that would be big for them. But it'd be good for Brighton to get these points and stay up at the top of the table. Because of our next game, it is Aston Villa versus Nottingham Forest.
For our sake, I hope Fati stays on the bench because
Yeah,
aside from Matoma, that dude's easily the best player on the squad, on either
yeah,
squad.
he is
Like that amount of
very, very.
talent, I don't know how they're not starting him, but please don't make it this week.
Yeah, he was laying up Barca. Now he's at Brighton and sitting on the bench. We'll see if that
Weird.
changes here. Hopefully not. But like I was saying, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest. Brighton is competing with them for that top spot outside the top four. But Aston Villa has been in some fine form. They've dropped a few games similar to this against lower opponents. They drew against Wolves, I believe. Uh,
Best team
but
in the
they're
league.
1 point out of Champions League contention. Mike, is Villa a legitimate contender for sneaking into one of those Champions League spots, just like how Newcastle kind of did last year?
Yeah, they're still a dark horse um, to finish top four because I think Newcastle's stronger. I think Brighton's pretty close. But yeah, I think their fifth is like kind of right around where they should be. I don't see them leapfrogging any of those four teams ahead of them, but I do think they can take care of Nottingham Forest pretty well. They look like a really good ball squad. Um, the the starting 11 they have is pretty damn fantastic. Unai's looking legit with his second stint in the Premier League, and Nottingham looks really poor. They haven't had a good kind of second half of the season so far. They started out well, and then they just have kind of fallen apart. Um, the Tayo injury hurt them, and defensively they've kind of looked really shaky the last couple of games. Liverpool tore them apart, comfortable 3-0 win. Um, and I think Aston Villa will do similar damage to them. They'll have trouble running with Diaby, and I think Ali Watkins will give them hell as well.
Yeah, I think Aston Villa has. You just look at that lineup; they do have a squad of maybe not stars. I think you can make an argument for Ollie Watkins being a semi-star for them in the Prem right now, but it's not stars, but they're all players that consistently put in good shifts, and it's paying off. Unai Emery has them playing in a good system. And I believe in the new, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the new Champions League system with like the Swiss play, depending on like who finishes top of the European competitions, the Premier League might get an extra spot, so they might find themselves in the Champions League just based off of how good the Premier League teams are competing right now in the Champions League. I think that's how they
Oh,
sneak in. I don't know if they can beat out any of those top four right now, like you said, but
would that
if they
go
can
into
stay at
effect
the top,
as soon as next season?
it's either next season or the season after. I'm not sure exactly when the new Champions League format hops in, but I believe this might be the last season with just group stage and knockout. I believe it's Swiss style after this,
Okay.
but it could be a potential thing that Aston Villa finds themselves in the Champions League, which would be pretty wild for them. Would be really nice to see. And certainly, if they can hold off Newcastle or Brighton that are going to be biting at their heels, I think. I mean, you can't ask for more as an Aston Villa fan to be fifth. I think it's a bit much to ask for top four, especially when they're fighting relegation last season. But we go to another team that has kind of ramped up their season. It is West Ham, who just beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup versus Brentford. I think West Ham has kind of struggled to prove it recently. I think they had a really good start to the season. They've had some results that make you be like, you know what, I'm still not fully convinced on them. And Brentford has had a convincing result against Chelsea recently. Who do you think comes out with a prove it game here? Is it Brentford proving it, or is it West Ham proving it?
This is a real test.
A week of
Yeah,
tests.
it it's a test either way. Like
The bees.
I didn't realize how close they were, just a point apart. Brentford wins this game. Like forget about them being a crappy team. Like I kind of thought at least I think we thought collectively as
Maybe
well.
jump on the table.
Those would be two pretty solid wins back to back, and when Tony returns soon enough, like that'd be a good place for them to be in, and then it's only up from there. I would think West Ham has struggled the last couple of games. Obviously, losing to the Toffees is a bad loss for them. I love it all day of the week. I mean, come on, let's go. But for the Hammers,
Up the top.
that's like, oh, what the hell are we doing? Um, and then getting thrashed by Villa the week before, like 4 goals they conceded or something like that. This is a tight one. Where's this at? At Brentford?
It is at Brentford.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't call this one. I think it's close.
I think
Oh, hold
I
on,
do think
folks.
Return of the King.
Call it. I'll call it right now.
Tire Man.
I'll call it right now. Arsenal win the
What?
league. Oh!
Oh,
We were just saying that.
What's up,
Yeah.
fellas? Sorry for the
Well,
late entry.
And you Flintstone
No
at
worries,
home.
we're
Yeah.
just talking
Hope
about your
you
favorite team, the
watch the
Hammers.
Tigers next time. Not get them
What's
slashed
up?
so much. Jeez.
Dude, oh my god. I think like I gave a kid a
Remember you have
bad
a
quiz
podcast
grade.
to tape? Next time you want somebody to slash your tires, all right?
Don't you live in
Yeah,
Los
I'm
Santos? Like I thought you were supposed to have the bulletproof tires wherever you go.
dude, it's weird because I mean we're so famous from this podcast. I don't know why they'd want to mess with me on a recording day. Must be the competition out there.
Tottenham fans, dude.
Must be.
Tottenham
Fucking
fans
top.
for sure.
Lowest of the dirt.
Nick, we'll get your first opinion on this take. West Ham versus Brentford. I am thinking West Ham are so due for a win. They've been needing a win here. They have one win in their last five, played some tough games. I think they come out here versus a Brentford team that has been also up and down in form, and I think they have a prove it game. I think they win this. Nick, do you see it the same way, or are you seeing a little bit where, like Mike, where you just don't have enough to call it?
Yeah, I hate to be so fucking wishy-washy hopping on the pod halfway through, but it feels like a draw to me. I don't know,
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
Bees are buzzing, bro. Buzzing
I
like
know our
crazy.
they
Two
think
big
are.
wins in a row. West Ham like didn't rotate their squad today against Arsenal, which was a little bit surprising. Shout out to the Hammers for a win, officially giving us a day off before Anfield. So way to do the Gunners a favor. But yeah, I don't know. They're definitely better. I mean, they're a much better team. It is in London. In Brentford side of London, I should say. Bees are playing well, but I mean, you look at this lineup. They got the players to do it. Paqueta, Kudush, Bowen. I mean, even Ben Rama's a baller. So, um, West Ham, if they are going to re-cement themselves as one of these like Europa League teams, they should be able to win this game. But I think I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of reached the conclusion that they're just kind of the best of the rest, and which is still a good team in the Prem. Don't get me wrong, but Brentford is like part of the rest as well. So I can see a draw here.
Yeah, I think Brentford. We haven't talked about enough their recent form, picking it up, and they're 1 point behind West Ham, and we've talked a whole lot about how West Ham is playing good. Obviously, West Ham, a lot of that is a drop in their recent form with a draw and two losses in their last three. But Brentford's not to be trifled with. But I'm still choosing West Ham. They need their bounce back, and as a great man says, they are due for a win. They are due. And going into another team, both teams here are probably due for a win. It is Burnley Crystal Palace. Not that much of a barn burner,
Ooh.
but it's a coin flip. Who's winning the coin flip here? Mike?
Yeah, it's a coin flip with one side, and that one side is Crystal Palace. Come on, man.
Yeah,
Get out of here,
you're
dude.
being an asshole. What do you mean
With
it's a
Crystal
coin flip?
probability
Palace
of
is
34-37.
so much better than this Burnley side. It's not even close. Everton smacked the hell out of the Clarets today. Um, and I think Crystal Palace will kind of do the same.
Yep. Nick, you seeing it the same way?
Yeah, what the fuck? You're a little dick for that, dude. What do you like, Crystal Palace
Oh,
fans?
I'm trying to.
Jared Flaggett lives in Chicago, Illinois. Go find
They've
him.
won 1-5.
Slash his
They've
tires.
won 1-5. They also need to win. Both of them have won 1-5.
Yeah, bro, but Crystal Palace took down the juggernaut that is Man U. So, right.
Oh,
So, no, dude, come on. We talk about this every week. This bottom three is maybe the worst promoted teams that we've seen in our like football watching history. So, I you got to go with the fucking Eagles.
yeah. I was trying to create a bit of a narrative, but Crystal Palace, I think, just has so much more talent. But Burnley will be needing this. They
Of course
so
they need it.
badly need this. They're just not going to get it. But
Dude,
we go to another team.
Jeffrey
We
Schlupp
have
will be
another
Burnley's
team.
best player.
Yeah,
Come on.
Schlupp's not even that far off from Crystal Palace's best player, to be fair.
Yeah, it's
So
But
cat. So cat. What are you talking about, dude? Here.
he performs well. But we go to a team that Schlupp most definitely would be. Nah, I'm just that's a little too far. I was gonna say would be their best player in history. It's Sheffield United. they're just having a real tough year. I don't want to kick people when they're down, especially with some hyperbolic insults. But Sheffield Wolves, one team is just continually streaming downwards. The other team is on a bit of a meteoric rise. Not much to say about this one there, is there, boys? Nick, up the
Uh,
Wolves?
yeah. Wait, what do you mean not much to say? Palmer, get on your fucking soapbox, bro. What do we got this weekend?
I mean, it's worst team in the league against best team in the league. It's not much to say. It's
I
fucking
guess the
tough.
Champions League
Champions League
contender.
elect.
Yeah, we're out our best guy. I think his name was Neto.
Attaboy.
So
Hey.
that's gonna be tough. But other than that, I think we just fucking roll through them. Up the Wolves.
Hell yeah. Ditto. Up the Wolves.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Up the
dude.
Wolves.
We
Up
turned
the
that
Wolves.
29 goals conceded to like 35 by the end of the weekend, probably.
Love
We're
that.
gonna mash Newcastle 8. I love it. Pedro Neto comes out in crutches and just smacks one with his crutch into
Dude,
the
he
top
just fucking
bins.
Scott Sterling's that shit, bro.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Palmer might be the only one watching that game.
Lock of the
Sheffield
week.
is not one for too many great ones. Actually, I do have an adjustment to make to my lock of the week. We have not gotten to it yet, but I'm adjusting because that is a pretty good pick.
Still
Uh,
available.
but before we get into our locks of the week, we do have the U.S. men's national team corner, which will be a very short one. We had Gio Reyna, who was saucy as hell today in the DFB Pokal versus Hoffenheim. Played in the center where he should be playing. Little flicks through people's legs, around defenders. Created 5 chances in the game.
Whew.
5
Bravo.
chances. And the guy was pinging the ball side to side like crazy. He is in some good form. Hopefully, he continues to get more minutes and more starts with Dortmund. Pulisic, his slight injury has been a really weirdly reported one. Because of translations from Italian, it said it was not an issue with his thigh, and that's all they said about it. Made no sense. But he was training by himself today, so it seems like there might be a little bit truth to him taking a knock and then being careful about it.
I could do the
And
translation
that's
for
really.
you if you like.
Oh, yeah.
He hurt his leg, okay?
Yeah,
It's not good.
it is not.
It's very bad.
Yeah, so all of them, not too hot. Weah also is injured right now, so
That was
Italy
not
not
Italian.
proven too hot for our Americans health wise right now. I will say Landon Donovan just had an episode with the CBS crew kicking it. Talks about the my other team is Mexico thing. Good clip. Shout out to them. That's a good podcast there. But like I said, we have some locks of the week to get into, and we start with the slash tire man, Jack the Ripper himself, Nick. He did it for insurance. Don't let him tell you differently. Who do you have as your lock this week, Nick?
Yeah, I've been steering clear. By the way, I did hit one from deep last week. Bournemouth 2, Burnley 1. No big deal. I'm hoping to build on some momentum because I'm starting to realize I don't want to pay for anyone's jersey. Give me the easy one on the board. Man City 3, Bournemouth 0. Like I said, I'm out on the cherries. Fuck the cherries.
Obviously.
Yeah, we said that those were the easiest locks of the entire year so far. So
Yeah, look, if I was to ever miss the first half of an episode, these fucking games this week are kind of stinkers. Like Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, and everything else is like nothing good.
Everton, Brighton.
Everton
Everton,
Brighton.
Brighton. That
Let's
is
go.
honestly the best game of the week. Like,
I think it's gonna be a decent game. I hope so.
I'm excited. I'm
I
excited.
thought you were All right, Mike, you have not gotten a single game wrong this season. Don't think that's going to change with your pick. What is your choice this week?
Yeah, it's going to be Liverpool over Luton. Same scoreline as Nick. 3-0 in favor of Liverpool. I wanted to say it, but yeah, no, I'm just gonna keep beating up on these shit teams. Thought about taking Wolves over Sheffield to keep on the streak, but I'll let someone else have a ride.
We gotta
Override.
figure out some sort of system with this so that Mike can't just pick against like relegation elects. Like
We might want to make it so upsets can count for
Extra
more
point.
amounts of points, or
mm.
teams other than Sheffield, Luton, and Burnley count for more points.
Maybe you have to
Or
pick
maybe
a
we just
No
team.
barely
eliminate.
beating up on championship
How
sides.
about handshake agreement? We, as of today, November 1st, 2023, relegate Luton, Sheffield, and Burnley, and they are no longer
We've
in
already
contention.
relegated them.
They are no longer in contention for locks of
I'm
the week.
for it.
'Cause fuck
I'm
those
for it.
guys.
Right. Let's let it go. Let's do it.
That sounds
And
good.
before it goes into place, I have the final one with Sheffield United. It is Wolves 2, Sheffield 0. Sayonara, guys. These are some tough teams. It will be a race for who can pick Bournemouth first, I'm sure, for the rest of the season. But Sheffield is out.
No, not
Burnley.
Bournemouth. Burnley. Bournemouth is still a Premier League team. Not a good one, but they're in there.
Not a good one. Excellent. They have
Like,
been relegated at this point. Sorry to
Um,
them. Sorry to their
have you ever seen
fans.
the Prem with only 17 teams? We're about to.
We're about to. On the next week for our locks, that is what you are seeing. But we conclude today's episode with a word from our sponsor, Producer P. And that word is just a question. Producer P, take it away.
Oh boy, have I got a? It's honestly not like it's not as crazy as some of the ones I've done before. But so, boys, my question for the week. Obviously, soccer, football, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is not quite as popular in the United States of America. It's just not like it's not the popular sport. A lot of the athletes who perhaps would go into soccer in other countries end up going into football or basketball, or those are the two big ones as far as I'm concerned. But
baseball.
baseball, I
Baseball?
guess. Do you think that if soccer was the number one sport in America, and it was where all the money was, and it was where all of the better athletes went, where would the United States stack up in the world in soccer?
You fucking nationalist.
Dude,
You racist fuck.
I'm a fucking
I thought
patriot,
about this a lot
motherfucker.
before. I think we'd be about the same.
They'd be amongst the best, if not the best.
I
Oh
don't
my
think so.
god, you
I don't think so at all.
What? We're a
What are
country
you
of
talking about?
330 million. It's right now like the fifth biggest, soon to be fourth biggest sport in America. If it were number one, undoubtedly you'd have better players that can get you to a top 5 team in the world.
Yeah, but
No.
like I think marginally better players, because some of the best athletes in the other sports just don't fit the profile of a soccer player.
Yeah, what about
Like we're
like the
not gonna
fast
have
guys though? Like
we're yeah, maybe
fucking
some
Odell
like the wide
Beckham?
receivers in the NFL, but we're not gonna have 6'8" LeBron James playing fucking soccer. It's just not
But
a
that's
thing.
that's not what you're saying though.
He
You're
could be
saying
our
that people are
goalie.
going to develop as soccer players. They're going to be developing as soccer players and athletes rather than the random players that might have been insanely good at soccer. I'm not saying fucking Victor Wembanyama is all of a sudden going to go out there and be playing striker and Peter
Freak
crouching it
goalkeeper.
in. I'm saying that all these kids, though, instead of going to AAU and going to football camps nonstop and getting all this training, it's going to be all going to soccer. They're going to be learning and growing up playing soccer. They're going to develop like crazy It's a country of 330 million with so much money that can be invested if it's the number one sport into development, into people getting significantly better at it, getting significant better training at it. I think if it's the number one, like Sunday night football is regarding to the Premier League and not the Jets and fucking Raiders, the world might be a better place. And the US would be definitely a powerhouse in soccer. I mean, look at any other sport that the US does or like Olympics. The US has a shit ton of people here with a shit ton of resources to be good at what they do.
Didn't we just lose at basketball?
Okay, that entire argument is wrong because or the Olympics argument, not the entire argument. We play Olympics too in soccer. We do Olympic soccer and we fucking suck in Olympic
What I'm
soccer.
saying is
And it's not like pole
add the other
vaulting or
sports, it's
sprinting
more
is
equal.
popular in the United States. Here's what you need to understand, okay?
You have a
No
bunch of
matter the
world championships in
popularity,
sprinting. What are you talking about?
no matter the popularity, okay, this country is first and foremost a capitalistic country. And so, like, our focus, even if it's the most popular, is always going to be on churning out the most money, not developing the most talent. And because of that, we will never be able to, like, even if all of a sudden, like, tomorrow, soccer's number one, all of our development now goes there because, like, we have this focus on making money and not on, like, football heritage. It will never work, dude.
I agree.
Look at fucking Saudi
But that's
Arabia.
not.
I disagree.
I disagree so much with that because you still have an insane amount of development. They're gonna be wanting to have the best teams because if you're talking about commercial value in the NFL, people are spending over the salary cap, spending a shit ton of money because there's so much TV revenue coming in. If America came number one popularity sport being soccer, there'd be so much money in soccer. They would be spending so much. It's already a like $10 billion deal with Apple. That would just go absolutely out of the roof. And you get so many players in, you get a bunch of rich people. And I think that's the thing is you would have the American market, which has all this money, so capitalistic, but you'd also have people buying into that American market because it's a good business move because you can not only spend a shit ton of money like you do in England or another place and bring in the best players and bring in a bunch of value in terms of entertainment, but you would get so much more return on that because if you're buying a team in Saudi Arabia with Messi, you get not that much in terms of fan engagement and money back. But if you do it in America, you are growing a gigantic fan base because it's the number one sport, and you get a return on the investment that motivates you more than, say, in England, which is a much smaller market, to get money returned on that. I think you have foreign owners, is what it
Premier
goes
League,
to.
I see
even
your
if it becomes
argument
the
for
most
having a bigger league, Jared, but I still don't know how that makes our players better. I think it's kind of disrespectful to the current crop of players we have now. Like the Christian Pulisic's, Weston McKinney's, Gio Reyna's in the world have had the same level of soccer training and exposure than any fucking player in the world. They're not without training. Like Pulisic in the Borussia Dortmund academy, Reyna in the academy. Like these are our best players, and they're still a cut below the world class. We don't have that because it's not ingrained in
But
our
Mike, they're
culture, like
starting
Nick
at
said.
16.
What?
They're starting at 16, going to other countries that have that culture of it being the number one sport.
Yeah, so
If
I
that
think
culture of it being the number one sport in
so
America,
you're saying
they'd be
Pulisic
training
started at
since they're
16?
young.
Pulisic started
Huh?
at
No,
6
but
or
he
7.
went to Europe at 16, is what I'm saying. Is
Okay,
he started getting
here's
that
the
training? You're saying he
here's
went
the
to
other
there,
issue.
he got the academy, but he went there at 16. He can't go earlier. Half of our players now can't go to Europe until they're 18 because they don't have another passport. So they're
Okay,
not getting the same.
hold on. Let's not talk about passports because the American passport can do literally anything for you in this world.
No,
Here's the
you
main
can't play in Europe with an American passport. You need a European passport.
here's the main issue. First of all, with the whole like Premier League having a small market, Premier League's market isn't just the United or England or the United Kingdom. Okay, like Premier League's market is
I don't think
worldwide
the
at this point.
American market's the biggest
Two,
market in the world.
let's say that okay, fine, it becomes the most popular sport overnight. Well, you're looking at the MLS. Ideally, you would be saying that, like, in order to develop our own talent, it would be happening in this country, right? In our league. The MLS has like this stupid designated player rule league. Like, they're going to lose one of their best left backs in the league, or the best left back in the league, because of their stupid salary cap. Like, all these rules are what's also hurting the game. And
That
why are
would
the rules
change
there?
if it's the
Why?
number one sport.
And why are the rules there? Because they're focused on making money, not on putting out the best product. Like, that's not
No,
going to change.
but Nick, they're changing those rules. Don Garber, the commissioner, has already said that those rules are starting to move out the window now that we have the investment that we need. That was put in place so that teams didn't crumble like in the NASL and the previous iterations of American soccer leagues that all crumbled, every single one of them, because people would invest so much and then it wouldn't bring in money and then they would lose it. It was a way to measure that so that people weren't going bankrupt. Now that you have the investment, if it was the number one sport, if it were the NFL type of thing in America, you would have so much investment in it. They would not be having these roster rules. It's the same thing as the NFL when it started. It had a bunch of different rules in terms of salary cap, and it constantly gets moved up because now it's the number one most popular thing in America. It has a gigantic market. It has the money.
The NFL salary cap is a completely different thing. But I think that primarily the focus would be on making money, and I think that hurts it. And let's say it becomes popular overnight. That doesn't mean that all these other countries are going away. You're talking about like 80-year process at best of all of a sudden us competing to be like a top 5 country in the world.
Well, I think that
But I'm
it
not.
would also bring over a
It's
lot of
330 million.
foreign talent. If there was
I don't
suddenly a
think.
lot of interest and a lot of money in the sport in America, I feel like it would be less just dudes coming here for their retirement tour and more like actual competition.
I
I
think
mean,
Because
that
like
they'd
can
you
be
get a
happen,
getting
but
absolute
are we
backers.
talking about international players to come and play in an American league? Or are we
Yes.
talking about our personal talent for the United States national
No,
If
team?
tomorrow
foreign
it
players
changed,
coming here.
if
Well,
tomorrow it
you
changed, foreign players would come here because there would be crazy amounts of huge stadiums like NFL, 60, 70,000. Every single stadium, you have all the infrastructure, all the money. And I think, yes, Nick, there are other teams, and I'm not saying that they'd immediately be the best, but they would definitely compete with the best. They'd definitely be a top 5 nation with, the Brazils, the Argentinas, the Frances, the Englands, because it would be the number one sport like it is there. And we have a larger population. So if it's a number one sport and we have a huge population that is crazy about athletics and has a huge market, the development would certainly go. And yes, it might take some time of it being the number one sport for that development to grow. I think saying that they wouldn't be a top 5 team in the world with it being the number one sport when they're a top 20 team,
So put
when
a
it's
so put a timeline
a
on it.
50
Put a timeline on it.
favorite,
Put a
I think
timeline
it's
on it. Let's say tomorrow it's the number one sport in the United States. In this many years, then we will be a top 5, top 3 contending for a World Cup team in the world.
I think 20, 25 years.
I think one
You're a
generation.
top.
That's very optimistic. One generation is
That's
extremely
not.
optimistic. Also, like,
That's all the kids
also
in
our best,
America
like,
for 25 years
it's not
developing.
all the kids though, because even if it becomes the most, even, let's say tomorrow becomes the most popular, sure, it starts getting this influx of money. That doesn't mean that the NFL no longer exists. That doesn't mean that the NBA doesn't exist. Like, especially
I
the
understand that.
number one sport right now, the number one sport right now in the United States is the NFL. The NFL does not mean like nearly as much to people in the United States as soccer or football or whatever you want to call it means to countless of countries around the world. Nowhere close. I mean, fucking ask Mike. He went to the fucking Galatasaray game, right? Like, they're fucking nuts, and that is nothing. Like, you go to a game in Colombia, you might fucking die, bro. And Colombia is like
different.
on the same
But
fucking
Nick,
level as the US. Like, the passion is not there for, even if it becomes the most popular. Right now, the most popular, it is not there.
I think you have a point.
And
the
there's a whole nother
passion doesn't
money
win you
issue
over.
with youth soccer, with access to youth soccer in America, especially. It it's so fucked up. The youth soccer system here, where if you do not come from an affluent family, you're not going to play for the top academies. You're not going to get on these travel rosters. Your pretty much your options are playing for a local club team and then eventually going through your high school ranks and then going the collegiate route, which if that is the route that United States takes, they'll never catch up because that's not what the other countries do. It Soccer is a
Yeah,
pathway
bro,
out of
they're
poverty,
fucking
and it will never be
seriously.
the case here in the United States where soccer is a pathway out of poverty. So we will never catch up. I mean, that is a huge
But I
thing. Aside from the culture, having a fucking option to obtain large sums of money is a huge reason why we see these successful players from these third world countries.
I agree with both you. The culture for sports in America is nothing close to what soccer is in other countries, and the development for youth in soccer for America is like messed up. There's a huge paywall on it. You have to be affluent to get the best training. But what I'd be thinking is that
As it's affluent.
if whatever,
Coupon.
if it's the number one sport in America, it'd be similar to like the USL would all of a sudden be massively important. All these lower leagues would massively get a lot more attention, and you'd have a lot more things popping up. There'd be so many
Is
more
that
youth clubs. There'd be so many more
is
things
that true?
to do. What?
Because that doesn't happen with like the AFL or like the XFL or anything right now. If we're talking
No,
about the most
XFL has
popular
a
isn't
sport.
that a
$400
promotion
million dollar
basically?
deal with ESPN. There's
Okay,
plenty of
but
interest.
that is
But what I'm
not
saying is
400 mil is chump
that
change.
for the youth development, there are so many camps, so many football teams, so many like everything for football. If that same thing was for soccer, it's the number one sport. You'd imagine that we're not from the fifth most popular sport having the same amount of opportunities as if it were the number one sport in America. I think there'd be a lot more opportunities that would come with it. And I think that goes exactly what you're saying, Mike, is currently there is such a huge gap for people who are in poverty to be able to play because of the money required in America. If it's the number one sport, I think that lowers that paywall significantly because there's going to be so many more opportunities because of that popularity.
I think we might just have to agree to disagree. Because also, like, what's the like if we're sticking with football and NCAA
So
football, like
what's your timeline
what's the
for them
main
being
goal? What's the main goal of NCAA football? It's to make money. Like it's the
Or
same thing over and over. Like no matter youth level or not, like the same things are happening. Like and even like camp invites as like an there's a podcast with Will Compton and Taylor Lewan who were both NFL players. They're always talking about like you need money to like go to these youth camps and like develop yourself. Like that doesn't change in America just because NFL is the most popular sport. I don't picture that changing if soccer was.
But I'm not saying that there's not going to be still paywalls. That's that in every single sport. But I'm saying is you see so many stories of people coming from poverty out of football and making it. I think you don't see
Oh,
that as much
bro, but
in soccer
that's
currently.
not I don't think that's this to the same level in soccer. Like I think there's high profile stories, but like fucking Carlos Tevez' team right now in Argentina, he's saying like he's having his he's like bringing in tutors to teach his players how to
they're
fucking
illiterate,
read.
right?
I
Like
know,
because
but that has nothing.
that
What does
is
that have to do with America
I'm s-
like having more opportunities at
I'm
youth
s-
level?
because I'm saying that his team, his professional in the Argentinian like top division soccer team, his team is full of people who likely weren't giving chances at education due to the impoverished like scenarios that they came from, and they are have all made it to that level of the league. Okay. Whereas
But so
like
what are
that
you
is so what I'm saying is that in the NFL, like there are players who have escaped poverty using the NFL, right? And reaching that level, but it is not as widespread as it is in other in soccer sports in soccer leagues around the world.
But what does that have to like? How? What does that mean in terms of America wouldn't be able to have more opportunities? Would
So
they not
I
have
so
more
I
opportunities?
you can clarify if you're wrong. I thought you were saying that more people who were impoverished that they would get more of an opportunity now because of like soccer being the most popular when that's not necessarily true with the NFL. We just hear some of those stories.
I was just saying, at the current moment, there is a huge slant against people who are in poverty getting into higher level academies and training. I think there is more opportunity if it's the number one sport for there to be pathways for those people to get to top levels, more
I think,
opportunity than there is today with it being the 5th highest. Do you not
yeah,
agree?
no, I agree that there'd be more. I don't think it'd be significantly more or enough to provide the boost that I think you're saying it would. If we're
So,
Yeah.
taking the current most popular sport as an example.
all right. All right.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Flags, that there is definitely the potential to get better and to develop our leagues to compete with the top 5 leagues in Europe from a viewership standpoint, from a fandom standpoint, from a money generation standpoint, and that our crop of players would get better if there was more investment. That's for sure true. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as if we had all of our money allocated to soccer, football, um, that we would automatically contend with the best teams in the world just because of the differences that we have in culture.
I
I
think
don't
I
think
think one
automatically.
yeah, I think one generation is not enough time. Even 2
It needs to
feels
be
short.
ingrained.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that
And, like,
if
even the
right
number
now
one
top
sport isn't
20,
gonna be as ingrained in America as it is in other parts of the country. Like, it's
Correct.
just not.
It's just not how we operate.
no, and I don't think Americans have the same type of connections with clubs or anything, and I'm not saying that that would ever be the same, and I'm not saying that that's gonna drive people to have the passion that other countries do have, but I guess from my thought is that America currently, with it growing to be the 4th highest watched sport in America, has grown into a top 20 team with players in AC Milan, Juventus, uh, Chelsea, like all these top teams, and that's with it being the 4th best thing. There's not a lot of investment, like we said, in it in America. I would think that if it's the most popular and it gets to be that, and I'm not saying that 100% 20 years, it's whatever. That is essentially just every kid growing up with it being the top sport and developing. I think you have enough to get in that argument. But I would say it is just a matter of time if it's the number one sport in America that we are a top 5 team in the world if we're already with it being the 4th highest a top 20 team. Do you guys
I don't
agree that
know.
at a certain point, or will you say just never the US will be a top 5 team with it being the number one sport?
I don't think we'd ever win a World Cup. If you wanna say, like,
You
we're
don't think the US
Belgium
will
fi
ever win a World Cup even if it's the number one sport in America?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, even if we're, like, the Belgium 5th best team in the world or whatever, I don't think we ever have enough to win a World Cup.
Mike, 90 years down the line of the US favorite sport, biggest sport in America, soccer, 100 years down the line, 200 years down the line, the US never wins a World Cup.
You said 20.
US
But I
US
just
ain't
said
gonna be here
never,
in
and you
100
said
years,
no
bro.
again.
Well, not while I'm alive, how about that?
No, it's not in the cards for us. And it comes down
Never. If
to
it's the number one sport in America.
we don't have the talent and we never will. We've
I
never
feel
had
like
a
we
World Cup,
definitely have
so
the athletes.
we've
You guys
never
are so
had
pessimistic.
we've never had a singular player who has amazed me.
We've never had it be the number one sport. It's
Have you ever
been
been amazed at
Doesn't matter.
LeBron James?
It doesn't matter. Soccer's been around in the United States since the first World Cup. We finished top 4 in a World
like
Cup.
we didn't go
It
to 20 straight World Cups. The MLS and like soccer, like modern soccer in America has only been around since like 1990.
Yeah,
Look how much
right.
it's developed since then.
And look how many waves we've had of interest in soccer in the United States that don't last. It Yeah, maybe it'll stick this time. Maybe it will. But what makes you think that would ever win a World Cup?
Because we are currently a team that is like a 20th best. Yes, we're not going to win a World Cup with it currently right now, but there's so much more investment going into it if it's the number one team, just like there's been so much more investment and we're seeing all these young players
Dude,
developing academies
we've had
here and
more
going to
investment
Europe.
than most countries in soccer, even with
Yes,
it being our
but Mike,
5th most watched
Mike,
sport, and we still don't compete.
yes, but Mike, that's the thing is we're not competing and we have a lot of investment now. If it's the number one sport compared to right now when it's the 5th best and we're still investing, think how much investment that is. so many more kids would be playing and there'd be so much more investment. I think you
You want
see
my
a
last line?
huge growth
I got
in
my last
terms of the
line is
talent and stature
Yeah,
since
I think
1994.
look
You
down
give it some
south.
time.
Who are our neighbors to the south? What's their number one sport? What have they done?
Mike, it's a population of 330 million with all the resources versus Mexico, who does not have resources and a much smaller population.
They got a big population. They're a big country. They have plenty of investment in soccer. Liga MX is a solidly
Mike,
sized league,
they do not have
and they don't have
close
it
to the
either.
amount of a market that America has or the amount of people.
And that does not
I
matter
think,
because money does not win you the World Cup.
and
But
that's exactly what I was
investment
gonna say.
in development does.
I think you're saying that like no matter what, like if we pump enough money into the problem, it's gonna win by becoming like we'll win. I don't think that's true.
That's
No, but
not
I
a
think
team has
getting good
never won the
enough
World Cup
kids
because of money.
to develop. But Brazil and France have development academies from young ages that every single kid wants to be in. If America has that, just like Brazil has, they have a huge population. Soccer's their number one sport. I'm not saying we'd be better than Brazil, but I think we'd be on similar grounds. We have a similar size country. We have huge amounts of money to put into academies so they can learn. So you have every kid getting a chance or getting a proper education rather than us doing ASO and kicking it around and not learning proper soccer techniques and having to go to Europe at 16 and having
Hey man, don't shit on
have
ASO.
a massive disadvantage.
It'll
All these guys
it'll
have head
never
starts.
be that important to us as it
Nah,
is in
If
Brazil.
it's,
Never
you're
will
wrong.
be.
but that is the
Let's take a
argument
vote.
that it
Let's
would
take a
be
vote.
that important because it's the number one
I
sport.
vote no. Mike, what do you
No,
vote?
it's not. It's not because soccer is the number one sport in Brazil. It's because soccer is
But I'm
Brazil.
saying
They're
this
fucking
argument is that
synonymous with each other. It's
I'm not
not,
saying that
"Oh,
we are
let me focus
Brazil.
on
I'm
this
saying we're a
sport."
top five team.
No, but you are saying because that is what Brazil is like top five and best and like competing for a World Cup every single year. That's what you're
I
saying will
think we'd be
become.
similar to them.
Yeah, no.
All right. I think it's ridiculous that you think that the US would never win a World Cup at any point, even with it being the number one sport in America.
If
That
we
seems ridiculous.
colonize every other country in the world, then who else is there to beat? We can win it
True,
that way.
bro.
That seems absolutely absurd. Croatia got to a final. If you
Just
don't think America, with it being the number one sport, can outdevelop a team that has, I don't even know what their population is. We have a population of 330 million. If they're all being developed for soccer, we would 100% have some crazy talents.
Dude,
We already
currently we
have some
spend
talents coming through.
That
currently we
argument
spend
goes
way
against you,
more.
dude.
I know, currently we spend way more on soccer than a country like Croatia does, and they're still fucking
Or
dog walking us.
Belgium.
Like
Yeah,
or Belgium. But like you're talking about countries that have like serious like economic issues. You're talking about countries that like are like on the brink of war. Like these are the
I
countries
just
that
think it is absurd that you guys think that all of America, with all the development that could happen with 330 million people going towards soccer, you think it is impossible for the US to ever win a World Cup. I think that is
All right.
wild.
Okay. Here's your counter question. If China puts all their money towards soccer with their billion and billion point eight, 2 billion people, would they win a World Cup?
At a certain point, yes. If you have 2 billion
Would they?
people playing soccer and developing, being trained properly, you're going to have some diamonds in the rough that right now are not able to be playing soccer or don't care to play soccer. If it's their number one sport and they're developing for a long time from young ages, 2 billion people, you don't think there's going to be some world-class players out of 2 billion people that get developed from a young age because of that investment?
this is like a Moneyball question.
You would think.
That's the
dude,
reason
it's
why
just
these other countries are so good.
it's just no okay, whatever. Uh like
Bro,
it's
there's
a
zero gray
cultural
here,
you're trying to make a cultural thing a money thing, and that's not it.
but it's not a cultural thing. Turkey has a
No, dude, but it
crazy
really
soccer
fucking is.
culture.
It really
Turkey has
is.
a crazy soccer culture. That doesn't mean they're good at fucking soccer. Like
First of all, Turkey is
they don't have the amount of people that the US has.
okay.
Dude, Turkey's got better players. Like the Turkey's best players are still better than our best players.
Are they? Who are Turkey's best players? If Turkey and the US played right now, I'd take the US. I think they'd be favored
Yeah,
in
probably.
on odds. And
Yeah,
that's
I
what
would
the
have taken
U.S.
them.
support. Culture
I would have taken
doesn't
them
matter
against
that much.
Honduras too, but man.
Oh my gosh.
Fucking low blow.
You know what? We're going to close with reminding everybody that West Ham beat Arsenal. They are in the mud. Nick, those tires were slashed by me. I knew you were going to say this. Guys,
Yeah.
sound off in the comments. We obviously had a lot to say on this topic. Let us know what you guys think. And until next time, the U.S. is winning the motherfucking World Cup, and you can't tell me differently. Peace.
Later, gentlemen. Peace.